The palace of Varelia rose like frozen light under a pale star. Tall towers made of crystal shimmered, changing color with every hour of the day. Inside, everything was quiet, too quiet for any human comfort. No music, no laughter, only whispers that echoed like wind in a canyon. Sergeant Dorian Reeve had never liked quiet places. He stood near the silver columns of the main hall. Wearing his standard-issue Space Force uniform, his eyes scanned the chamber, alert. Even though this was a peace mission, old habits from the battlefield never left him. Beside him, human diplomats whispered nervously. They were waiting for the Zalari Council to arrive. The Zalari were an old race. Tall, elegant, glowing slightly in the dim light. Their skin was smooth like glass, with soft pulses of color moving beneath it. They didn't smile. They didn't blink. They didn't touch. And above all, they worshipped silence. At the far end of the chamber sat the cold throne. No one had ever dared to sit on it except one being, Princess Ive. Reeve had heard stories about her. She was the daughter of the High Matriarch, the symbol of Zalari purity. A being of beauty, untouched by war, politics, or love. Her presence was rarely seen. Even her people bowed without speaking in her presence. Touching her was considered not just disrespectful, but a crime beyond words. Reeve didn't believe in perfect people. He didn't believe in untouchable princesses either as the Zalari Council entered. Gliding across the floor like shadows, Reeve's gaze moved with them. They made no sound when they walked. Their robes sparkled like stars trapped in fabric. The human diplomats bowed respectfully. Reeve just nodded. He wasn't there to impress anyone. He was there to protect. And then he saw her. She entered from a high balcony, floating slowly downward on a soft beam of light. Princess Ive. Her form was delicate, her gown made of thin, glowing threads that moved like water. Her face was come to calm like a statue carved by wind. But her eyes were alive. Reeve didn't mean to stare, but he couldn't help it. Her eyes weren't cold. They were full of something else. Something lonely. The princess paused as she reached the ground. Her gaze swept the room, slow and careful. Then it stopped at him, just for a second. A moment that felt longer than it should have. Reeve didn't look away. She did. The council began to speak through translation drones. Its cold, formal words about treaties, territory, and trade routes. Humans listened, took notes, and responded with practiced smiles. Reeve stood still, watching. But his mind wasn't on the talks anymore. It was on her. After the meeting, the humans were escorted to their guest quarters clean. It's beautiful and lifeless. As the diplomats discussed the next steps, Reeve stood on the balcony alone. Stars above Varelia were bright and sharp. He took a deep breath and tried to clear his thoughts. She saw you. The voice made him jump. He turned and found an old Zalari attendant standing behind him. Shorter than most, and far less formal. Reeve narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? The attendant gave a slow nod. The princess. She saw you. She looked longer than she should have. Is that a problem? Reeve asked, suspicious. Maybe? Maybe not. No one ever looks back at her. You did. Reeve raised an eyebrow. I didn't mean any offense. I know, said the attendant. That's why it matters. He left without another word. The next day, there was a small ceremony in the Gardens of Stillness, a rare event. The princess herself would walk among her people. It was an ancient ritual one she hadn't done in years. Reeve asked to be part of the security detail. The humans thought it was unnecessary, but approved it. No one ever tried to harm the princess. Still, Reeve wanted to see her again. The gardens were quiet and strange plants shaped like crystal feathers. Pools that reflected the sky but not the people. The Zalari gathered in circles, watching the path with their glowing eyes. And then Ive appeared. She moved slowly, each step soft and graceful. Around her the air shimmered slightly like heat rising from stone. The Zalari bowed without speaking. Reeve watched from behind a column. She didn't look at anyone directly. But when she passed him, she paused. A single moment. Their eyes met again. Then she continued walking, not a single change in expression. But Reeve had seen something in her eyes, this time curiosity. That night, Reeve couldn't sleep. He walked the hallways, silent as he could. The palace seemed empty at night, as if time stopped while the stars watched. Then he heard it music, faint, soft, and unlike anything he expected. Not a human song, something older, sadder. He followed the sound, careful not to alert the palace. Guards had led him to a small chamber near the Starlight Observatory. Inside, Princess Ive stood alone. She was playing a long silver instrument that looked like a harp mixed with wind chimes. Her fingers moved slowly over the strings, her eyes half closed. Reeve watched, stunned. The music ended. She turned. There was no fear in her face. Quiet surprise. "You are not supposed to be here," she said softly. "I didn't know anyone else was awake," Reeve replied. "I heard the music." She studied him. "Music is. It's forbidden after midnight. It disturbs the stillness." "But I like to disturb it sometimes," Reeve smiled. "That makes two of us." A long silence followed. "You're different from the others," she said. "You too," he replied. She stepped closer. "Why do humans speak so much? Even when silence would say more." "'Cause silence feels like giving up," Reeve said. "Words let us fight back. Against fear, against loneliness." "Do you feel lonely?" she asked. Reeve didn't answer right away. "Sometimes, me too," she whispered. A pause. "May I ask a question?" She said anything. "Why did you look at me?" "Because you were looking at me?" She blinked. "No one has ever dared to? Then maybe they should have." I've took another step forward. Her face was close now, still calm, but her breath trembled slightly. "This moment cannot exist," she said. "Why not?" he asked. "Because if it does, everything changes." Reeve looked at her, truly looked in for the first time. He didn't see a princess. He saw a person, a soul locked in glass. He didn't move closer. He didn't touch her, but he whispered, "Maybe change is what you need." Before she could answer, a soft alarm echoed in the chamber. She stepped back quickly. "You must go," she said. "Will I see you again?" "I don't know." Then she turned and disappeared through a hidden door in the wall. Reeve stood there. For a moment, heart pounding, he didn't know what had just begun, but he knew one thing. Something had changed, forever. Dorian Reeve couldn't stop thinking about her, ever since that late-night meeting in the music chamber. His mind had been spinning. He had seen many strange things during his military service, alien landscapes, machines made of light, battles fought without weapons. But none of those memories stayed in his heart like that quiet moment with Princess. He kept telling himself that it was nothing, just a strange, short conversation. A shared thought between two very different people, nothing more. But deep inside, he knew something had changed, and he could feel it wasn't over yet. The next morning, the diplomatic team was invited to another gathering, this time in the Hall of Mirrors, a place rarely open to outsiders. It was said to be sacred to the Zalari, a place where truth was reflected and lies had no place to hide. Reeve wore his uniform again, freshly pressed. His job, officially, was just security. Unofficially, he knew something else was going on. When the humans entered the Hall of Mirrors, everyone fell silent. The room was massive, with walls made of crystal and mirrors that shimmered like living water. The floor reflected the ceiling. It felt like standing inside a star. The Zalari elders floated in on thin beams of blue light. "Once again, Princess. I've arrived last." She descended in silence, head high, expression calm. But her eyes, her eyes found Reeve in the crowd. Again, just for a second, just like before. And again, he didn't look away. After the meeting, Reeve was called aside by one of the human diplomats, a woman named Dr. Ella Klein. She was smart, cautious, very good at reading between the lines. "You've drawn attention," she said, folding her arms. "Not all of it good?" Reeve raised an eyebrow. "What did I do? You keep locking eyes with the most protected person in the galaxy?" "I didn't mean to," he said. "It just happened." She leaned in closer. "On Varelia, nothing just happens. Reeve didn't answer. She sighed. Look, I know you're not trying to cause trouble, but there are ancient rules here. Ev is more than a princess to them. She's a living symbol. She's not even allowed to touch her own people. Reeve's voice was quiet. Then maybe someone should ask her how that feels. Dr. Klein looked at him for a long moment. Then she simply said, "Be careful, Sergeant." Later that evening, Reeve returned to the Gardens of Stillness. It was the only place that felt even a little bit human. The wind moved through the crystal trees like a soft song. Pools reflected the stars perfectly, without a ripple. He wasn't expecting to see her again, but there she was alone near one of the still ponds. No guards, no servants. It's just her. I've stood with her hands behind her back, staring into the water. Reeve stepped forward slowly. "I didn't think I'd see you again," he said. She turned her head slightly. "I wasn't sure you would come. You didn't exactly leave the door open." Small smile tugged at her lips, but it vanished just as quickly. "You should not be here," she said. "I get that a lot." He walked beside her, keeping a respectful distance. They stood in silence for a while, both watching the pond. "Why do you come here?" he asked. "It is the only place where I can think," she said softly. "And in thinking I begin to feel." He looked at her. "Not supposed to feel?" "No. Feeling is weakness among my kind. Motion is disorder. We are taught to suppress it." "That sounds ... lonely." "It is," she whispered. He didn't say anything. She turned to him carefully. "I've been taught that humans are wild, unpredictable, that you are ruled by emotion, that you are dangerous." Reeve smiled a little. "They're not wrong. I also see something else. You speak with your hearts. You act with courage. You fight for love." He nodded. "Sometimes. Not always. But we try." She stepped slightly closer. "I have never spoken this much to anyone before. You're doing fine." Another moment passed. Then quietly she asked, "What is it like to love someone?" Reeve blinked. "That's a big question." "Want to understand? Not with logic, but with feeling." He searched for the words. "It's like having someone you'd risk everything for, even when it makes no sense. It's terrifying and amazing. You feel alive, even when it hurts." I've looked down. I've never been allowed to love or be loved. "Maybe that's the problem," he said. She looked back at him rarely. Looked. There was a soft light in her eyes now. It's not from her skin, but from somewhere deeper. "I've read human stories," she said, "about forbidden love, about people who fight for it, even when the whole world tells them not to." "Yeah," Reeve said. "We write a lot of those." "Why?" "Because love is worth fighting for." Suddenly, a faint chime echoed through the garden. A warning tone. Guards were nearby. I've turned quickly. "You must leave." "I'm not afraid, but I am," she said. "Not for me, for you." She stepped closer, almost too close. "If they see us together like this, there will be questions, punishments." Reeve nodded. "Then I'll go. But answer me one thing first." "What?" "Did you come here hoping I would follow?" She didn't reply with words. Instead, she reached out just barely and touched his hand. It was a soft, quick touch, like a whisper made real. Then she stepped back and was gone. The next morning, everything changed. Reeve was pulled aside by palace security. They told him he had been seen wandering restricted areas. His access to most parts of the palace was now limited. The human diplomats were furious. Dr. Klein tried to fight the restriction, but the Zellerai Council refused to listen. And Princess Ive, she did not appear at the next meeting, or the one after. That rumors began to spread. Some said she had broken protocol. Others said she had been sent into isolation. Reeve was placed under constant supervision, but none of that mattered, because now he knew. She had felt something too. And even if the galaxy stood between them, even if every law, custom, tradition tried to stop it, something had begun. A connection, a spark, a glance that echoed louder than 1,000 voices. He sat alone that night, in the silent guest room, staring at the stars beyond the crystal window, and he made a quiet promise. He would not let this end here. Dorian Reeve was now a prisoner of silence. His movements were restricted. 2 Zalari guards followed him wherever he went. He was no longer allowed near the palace gardens, the Starlight Observatory, or the music chamber. Role in the human delegation was quietly reduced. And worst of all, he had heard nothing from her. No word from Princess Ive, no message, no glance. Nothing. It felt like the world had frozen over again. The soft warmth he had found in her eyes now felt like a dream, fragile, fading, and slipping through his fingers. And still, Reeve waited. In his quiet chamber, he trained push-ups, sit-ups, shadowboxing. It was the only way to keep his body moving while his mind battled stillness. At night, he stared out at the glowing Zalari city from his high window. Everything was quiet, perfect, and dead. Until one night there was a knock. Soft, careful. He stood quickly. The door creaked open. A small Zalari figure entered, wearing a dull gray robe, the old attendant from before, the one who had spoken to him after the first meeting. "She has not forgotten you," the old man said. Reeve's chest tightened. "Is she all right?" "She is hidden. Safe for now, but trouble grows." Reeve stepped forward. "Tell me what's happening." "There are 2 sides in our court now," the man said. "The old blood, who believe contact with humans must be limited, and the new, who wish for change. And she is the reason the council is divided." Reeve frowned. "Because she spoke to me." "Because she touched you," the man said, voice low. "No Zalari of royal blood has ever broken the touch ban, not in thousands of years. You must understand what she did was not only bold, it was revolutionary. She touched me for less than a second. To us, that second is a storm." Reeve sat down slowly, the weight of it hitting him. "She has been taken to the Shrine of Reflection," the old man continued. "It is a place where Zalari leaders go to isolate themselves when their minds are disturbed." "She's not disturbed," Reeve snapped. "She's finally waking up." The old man gave a thin smile. "That is why they fear her." Reeve clenched his fists. "Can I see her?" "Not yet, but soon. If you are willing to take a risk." "I've already taken the biggest one," Reeve said. "I felt something real. I won't back down now." The man nodded. "Then listen closely." For the next 2 days, Reeve followed orders. He stayed quiet. He followed his guards, behaved like a good guest. But every night he received instructions. Ones passed by the old man through coded messages or disguised servants, a map drawn in crushed starfruit juice, a small chip placed in his meal tray, a warning passed through a whisper from a cleaning drone. Everything was preparing him, for one thing, to enter the Shrine of Reflection. The shrine was located deep below the palace, carved into the living crystal of Aurelia itself. It was said to be the most sacred place in their world, a place of pure silence and thought. No outsiders were allowed inside. No one ever questioned who came out. The night of the operation, Reeve dressed in stolen Zalari robes. His face was hidden. The old attendant guided him through hidden tunnels, narrow maintenance shafts, and ancient elevator tubes long forgotten by the palace guard. At last, it reached a narrow bridge of light stretching across a glowing chasm. "There," the old man said, pointing toward the dome structure at the end. "She is within." Reeve nodded. "Will she know I'm coming?" "No, but her heart will." With that, the old man left him. Reeve stepped onto the light bridge. Every step hummed. Under his boots, below him, the crystal sea sparkled with energy pale blue, endless, alive. When he reached the door of the shrine, it opened without a sound. Inside was a single round room, smooth walls, no furniture, only a glowing pool in the center, and a figure standing beside it, Princess Ive. She turned at the sound of his steps, and her eyes widened. "Dorian." He pulled back the hood. "I came for you." Her lips parted, but no sound came. For a long moment they simply stared at each other. Then she spoke softly. "They will punish you for this. Not afraid. You should be. Only care about one thing," Reeve said. "Are you okay?" Ive's gaze dropped. "I don't know. I've been thinking about what I did, about what it meant to them, to me. And what did you decide?" She looked up again, eyes shining with something powerful and new. "I decided I don't want to go back to silence." Reeve took a step closer. She didn't move away. "You showed me a world beyond stillness," she said. "You made me feel alive. I was raised to be a perfect symbol, a goddess without desire. But now I feel things I was never meant to feel. Joy, fear, want." Reeve held her gaze. "I feel them too." Another step. They were inches apart now. "I don't care what they say," she whispered. "I won't go back. I won't let you." And then, without waiting for permission, he leaned forward and kissed her. It was gentle, simple, but it shook the stars. Her hands rose slowly, unsure, then found his shoulders. For a moment, they simply stood like that, two souls meeting in a forbidden space. Under a silent ceiling of ancient light, when they broke apart, her eyes were wet. "No one has ever dared to do that," she said. "I'm not like the others, No." Suddenly, loud alarm blared. Red light flooded the room. "They know," she said. "They're coming." Reeve grabbed her hand. "Then let's run." She hesitated for only a second, then nodded. They sprinted across the shrine, taking the side tunnel Reeve had memorized from the map. Behind them, the sound of distant shouts echoed. The guards were coming as they ran. Ive's glowing dress shimmered brighter than ever. Her body pulsed with energy she had never released before. Something had awakened in her, not just emotion. Power. They reached the chasm bridge, but it was already being sealed from the far side. Reeve skidded to a stop. "We're cut off." "No," I've said, stepping forward. "Not yet." She raised her hands. Her fingers trembled, but then began to glow. Light burst from her palms, and the crystal around them hummed in response. The bridge reopened. Reeve stared, stunned. "How did you—" "I stopped holding back," she said. They dashed across. On the far side, the old attendant waited with a small transport drone. "This way," he shouted. They jumped in. The drone lifted just as guards appeared behind them. Lasers shot past narrowly. Missing their escape pod, Reeve held on to her tightly. They were free. For now, but the real storm had just begun. High above, in the palace throne chamber, a high matriarch received the report. Her daughter had fled. With a human, she did not scream. She did not move, but a single tear ran down her perfect cheek. The age of stillness was ending, and nothing could stop what was coming. The small drone ship shot through the crystal tunnels under Varelia, carrying two fugitives who had never meant to fall in love. Dorian Reeve sat beside Princess Ive in silence. The stolen escape pod buzzed softly as it flew through forgotten paths, narrow, glowing tunnels cut into the deep bones of the planet. Above them, alarms echoed through the city. The Zellery High Council had declared a level 7 violation. An alien soldier had touched the royal bloodline and kissed her. That was enough to shake a 1,000-year-old empire. Ive sat still, her hands resting in her lap. Her skin glowed dimly, now softer than before. But inside her, something was burning. Not fear, not shame, choice. For the first time, she was choosing her own path. "I've always lived inside a cage," she said suddenly. Reeve turned to her. "This place doesn't look like a cage to me." She shook her head. It was a cage of silence, of obedience. "I was raised to be pure not in body, but in thought. I was told what to believe, how to walk, when to smile. Every word I spoke was scripted, every breath measured. And now," she looked at him, "now I don't care what they think." Reeve gave a small smile. "That's dangerous thinking. It feels good." He reached over and gently took her hand. "I'm glad I met you." But she squeezed his hand back. "Me too." The drone brought them to an old outpost in abandoned Zelari research station hidden in the southern crystal fields. It was long forgotten, half buried in sand and stardust. The outer walls flickered with broken light, but the energy core was still active. they could hide here. For a little while inside, they found shelter in a room lined with old maps and memory crystals. Reeve cleared space on the floor. I found a blanket made from silver weave and handed it to him. They sat side by side against the wall. For the first time, the world outside felt far away. You know, they'll come for us, Reeve said. She nodded. Yes. But I'm not running. Anymore. Not truly. I'm moving forward. He studied her for a moment. You're not the same woman I met that first day. I don't feel like her anymore. You're stronger now. No, she said softly. I'm just more real. Later that night, as they shared a small meal from the drone's emergency rations, they talked about Earth. Reeve told her about rain, how it smelled, how it danced on windows, how kids played in puddles. I've listened with wide eyes. Our world hasn't seen rain in centuries. We control water through crystal pressure. It's all managed. Some of the best things in life aren't meant to be controlled, he said. Right. They're meant to surprise you. Like us? He laughed quietly. Yeah, like us. I've leaned her head on his shoulder. I wonder what my people will say about me now, she whispered. They'll call you a rebel. They'll say I betrayed our tradition. Maybe, Reeve said. But some of them might be inspired. She looked up. Do you really believe that? He nodded. Every big change starts with a single step. Maybe your kiss was that step. I've smiled softly. That kiss. It wasn't just a step. Right. It was a leap. But peace didn't last long. Just before dawn, the alarm inside the station blared. Reeve jumped to his feet. Movement detected outside. Station AI warned. Zellery's signature. Not friendly. Reeve ran to the control panel and pulled up the visual feed. A patrol squad. 4 Zellari guards, in light armor, moving through the crystal dunes. Guess they found us, he muttered. I've stood behind him, calm but alert. They won't harm me. I'll take you back. She nodded, and punish you. Reeve clenched his jaw, and we don't let them take either of us. We grabbed his utility belt and activated the small human pulse blaster he kept hidden. Not strong enough to kill, but enough to stun. You're not a soldier anymore, I've said softly. I'll always be one when I need to be. She touched his arm. Then let me help. Outside, the wind kicked up pale sand and glowing dust. The 4 Zellery soldiers moved carefully, scanning the outpost with handheld scanners. Reeve crouched behind a crystal pillar. His breath was slow, focused. But just as he prepared to move, a beam of light shot from above the soldiers. I've stood on top of the outpost. Arms raised, body glowing, her voice rang out like thunder. Stand down. I am my daughter of thee. High Matriarch, I do not order you, I free you. The soldiers froze. Then one stepped forward. You have broken the sacred laws. You must return to the shrine. No, she said. I have broken silence. I will never return to the prison you call tradition. Another soldier raised his weapon. We are under command to detain you. But before he could fire, Reeve jumped from cover and hit him with the stun pulse. The soldier dropped like a stone. The other 3 turned their weapons, but I've raised her hands and released a burst of light so bright the sky cracked. The soldiers dropped their guns. One of them knelt. I do not understand this path, he said, voice shaking. But I see truth in your eyes. I've stepped down, then go. Leave us, until the others' change has begun. The soldiers hesitated, then turned and disappeared into the crystal mist. Afterward, Reeve and I stood together under the rising twin moons. You were incredible, he said. I didn't know I had that power. It was never about power, Reeve said. It was about choosing to use your voice. She nodded. And I choose you. Reeve took her hand again. So what now? We stop hiding, she said. We go to the council. He blinked. They'll arrest us. Maybe, but maybe. They'll listen? You're serious? I want to stand in the light hall. I want to speak to them all. As myself, not as a puppet. Reeve took a deep breath. Then I'm with you. All the way. She smiled. And this time it was not the smile of a princess. It was the smile of a woman who knew who she was. At sunrise, they boarded the drone and flew straight toward the heart of Aurelia's capital. The skies above them turned gold. Behind them, crystal winds carried the whisper of a new beginning. And ahead, final choice waited. The drone ships soared across the crystal sky, cutting through layers of cloud and sunlight. Dorian Reeve and Princess Ive stood together at the front window, silent but strong. Below them, the capital of Virilia glittered like a jewel perfect. Cold and waiting. Reeve's heart beat faster with every second. They were going back, not to run, not to hide, but to fight with truth. Ive had chosen her path, and Reeve had chosen her. "We have less than 5 minutes," Reeve said, checking the scanner. "A defense grid is targeting us. I can disable it," Ive replied calmly. "If I reach the tower crystal, that tower's in the center of the light hall." "I know." Reeve looked at her. "You might shoot us down before we land. Then we land harder." He smiled. "I really liked you better when you were shy." "I was never shy," she said. "Only waiting." The drone buzzed low over the palace walls. Anti-air alarms screamed across the city. Zalari guards took flight with silver gliders. Crystal cannons hummed with heat. Inside the drone, I've placed her hands on the control orb. She whispered something in her native tongue, soft, sharp, and powerful. The drone pulsed with light and dropped instantly through the palace. Barrier. The defense grid blinked, then shut down. All across Virilia, energy wavered. For the first time in centuries, the shield had been lowered from the inside. The drone landed with a heavy crash in the middle of the light hall courtyard. Guards surrounded it within seconds. Weapons raised, but they didn't fire. They didn't dare, because I've stepped out first, and she was glowing like a star. "I am not a traitor," she said, her voice echoing across the walls. "I am your future." Reeve followed her out. He kept his hands raised. The silence around them was thick. Dozens of Zelari citizens had gathered. Ministers, workers, elders, even children. They watched, unsure, afraid but curious. No one moved, until a tall figure stepped through the crowd. The High Matriarch, Aive's mother. Her dress was dark. Her eyes were calm, but her face held pain. "Ive," she said, "you have brought shame to this sacred hall." "No, mother," I've replied. "I've brought change." "You broke the laws of stillness." "I broke the silence," I've said, "and I will not apologize." "You touched a human." I kissed him. The crowd gasped. Reeve held his breath. The matriarch looked down. "Why?" "Because I loved him." More gasps. Shocked whispers. "But I didn't stop. And because I needed to feel what it meant to be alive. You always told me to be perfect. But perfection is not peace. It is prison. You were born to guide our people. I am still guiding them. But not into more silence, into light." The matriarch's hands trembled slightly. "Do you think they will follow you?" "I don't ask them to follow me. I ask them to choose." She stepped forward and raised her hands. "I was afraid. I was blind. I believed silence was safety. But I met someone who reminded me of something we had all forgotten." She turned to Reeve. "That life is not measured in obedience. It is measured in feeling, in choice, in courage." Reeve stepped forward too. "I didn't come here to start a war," he said. "I came here because I met someone who was more than just royalty. She was real, brave, and ready to break the rules to do what was right." The matriarch looked at him with unreadable eyes. "You are a soldier," I was, he said. "Now, I'm just a man who loves your daughter." More murmurs from the crowd. Then something happened. A young Zelari woman stepped forward. She removed her veil. "I believe her," the woman said. "She speaks truth." An elder followed. "We have lived in stillness long enough." A male guard lowered his weapon. "We need change." More voices joined. Some still fearful, but many hopeful. The matriarch closed her eyes, and for a moment, all of Virilia held its breath. Then she spoke. "Then let it be heard," she said. "Let the silence end." That afternoon, in the largest gathering the city had seen in generations, the Zelari Council voted to review the ancient codes of purity. For the first time in over 1,000 years, a royal voice had challenged tradition and survived. Some leaders opposed the motion, but more supported it. And as the light hall glowed into the evening sky, I've stood on the central crystal tower, not as a prisoner, not as a rebel, but as a leader in the days that followed. Reeve and I've walked freely through the city. Zalari children laughed and pointed at them, whispering stories of the human who dared to kiss a princess. Artists painted murals of light and motion. Musicians composed new songs with human melodies, and beneath it all, a new energy, MMED, possibility. One morning, Ive and Reeve stood at the top of the observatory tower. I dreamed of this view when I was younger, she said, but I never thought I'd see it with someone like you. Reeve smiled. I'm messy and loud. No, she said, free. They stood in silence for a while, watching the light flow across the horizon. Then Reeve reached into his pocket. He said. There's something I want to ask. She turned, curious. He held up a simple ring handmade from Varelian crystal and human alloy. Rough but strong. A symbol of two worlds joining. I know we're from different planets, different people. But I also know this, my life began when I met you. So, he went down on one knee. Will you marry me? I've stared at him, eyes wide, lips trembling. Then she laughed softly. Tears sparkled in her eyes. You foolish, brave, wonderful man. She took his hand and helped him to his feet. I would kiss you again 1,000 times, she whispered, and she did, on the day of their union. The city rang with celebration. Humans and Zelari stood side by side. A new banner flew over the Palisa, a symbol of light and motion. With 2 stars in orbit around one another, some still resisted change, but most welcomed it. Because, when one voice dares to speak, others find the courage to follow, and so the legend lived on. No one had ever dared to approach the alien princess before, but a brave human soldier kissed her and changed a world forever.